Well, hey, Southern Oregon, welcome back to the Real Estate Show. So glad you could join us again today. And we have an outstanding show in store. We're going to be interviewing Hannah Satin. She's the Education and Outreach Coordinator for Jackson County Soil and Water Conservation District. These are the folks that help homeowners talk about their soil, talk about their water, their animals, their plants, what they can do, good practices, not so good practices. They're there to serve us. So Hannah Satin with Jackson County Soil and Water Conservation District is going to come on the show here shortly. In the meantime, let's quickly jump into the stats, because if I'm right, we might be bottoming out in our prices and on the way to a little bit of an uptick. We'll see. That's why we check everything every week. Jackson County prices year over year are only down 3%. The average residential single family home will now cost you $503,272. The number of solds in Jackson County are down 31% from this time last year. Jackson County number of listings are down 10% from this time last year. We have 0 closed foreclosures in Jackson County this week, 0 closed short sales in Jackson County this week, but we have $4 million properties that close this week in Jackson County. 1.3 million in East Medford, 1.19 million in Ashland, 1.05 million in East Medford, and 1.0 million in Jacksonville. Congratulations, folks. Klamath Falls prices year over year are down 17%, with the average residential single family home costing $279,425 for this time last year comparison in Klamath Falls. Klamath Falls number of solds are down 68%, but we watch and see if that pops up in the next couple of weeks. Klamath Falls number of listings are down 7%. There was 1 foreclosure that closed in Klamath Falls this week for $256,000. It was on Dayton Street. We had 0 short sales close in Klamath Falls this week and $0 million residential properties close in Klamath Falls this week. Josephine County prices year over year are down 28%, with an average residential single family home costing $337,671. The number of solds in Josephine County are down 43% year over year. Josephine County number of listings are down 10% year over year. We have 0 foreclosures closed in Josephine County this week, 0 short sales closed in Josephine County this week, and $0 million residential homes closed in Josephine County this week. So folks, I really do think we might be at the beginning of an upward trend, but that's why we check these numbers every week. So stay tuned. In the meantime, we get to be educated by Hannah Satin of Jackson County Soil and Water. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Well, welcome back to the Real Estate Show, folks. I'm Alice Lema, your host of the show. I'm a broker here in beautiful Southern Oregon with John L. Scott Real Estate. And today we're so excited to be interviewing Hannah Satin with Jackson County Soil and Water Conservation District. She's the Education and Outreach Coordinator. Welcome, Hannah.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, we love talking to you folks. Our listeners always learn a lot. Can you maybe start by just telling us a little bit about yourself and what you do there at JSWCD? It's quite a mouthful, isn't it?
It sure is. It sure is. And we can get into that mouthful and the explanation of our agency if you want. So I do education and outreach, which means outreach, I think of sharing sort of bite-sized, key, relevant information related to the work we do, natural resources in Jackson County. Also inviting folks to engage with us, engage with our services, certain programs and offerings we have. It might be tailored, it might be countywide, just depends. And then education, all of our staff help support education in the county, doing different events and classes and things. And then I like to think that I sort of focus on youth education more specifically, but we definitely do adult education and youth education if it's programs or someone's inviting us in. So that kind of explains my role. Do you want me to give background on JSWCD right now? Or?
Yeah, let's just bring people up to speed about what the agency is and offers to people.
For sure. So yes, our name is a mouthful, Jackson Soil and Water Conservation District. And most of the mouthful is that last 4 letters, Soil and Water Conservation District. And so we are an entity that, a type of entity that exists across the United States soil and water conservation districts were formed after the Dust Bowl. So the federal government wanted to help folks avoid the issues of soil erosion and, water management. There was a big drought going on. And so they started putting out funding via the Soil and Conservation Service, which is now NRCS, Natural Resources Conservation Service. And they're like, oh my gosh, we don't really know what's going on across the entire United States. It's so big, it's so broad. We need folks on the ground that are connected to their communities. So they encourage states to create soil and water conservation districts. And that's really at the heart of what we still do, is we try to work with residents to figure out what are the natural resources concerns going on, where are the issues, and step in and provide assistance, whether it's technical assistance, so information, plans, designs, expertise, connections to other folks, financial assistance. We have some internal grant programs. Our staff write grants, write grants and receive external funds. Of course, we do education, we do outreach, and we also do monitoring. So those are our 5 areas of service, and it really, we serve the whole county. We predominantly focus on private lands, and that again goes back to that history of where soil and water conservation districts were formed and why we were created. But certainly our work does not only benefit the folks whose lands we are working on, it benefits the whole county and residents.
Wow, that's amazing. And so I bet a lot of people didn't realize that this agency came about because of the traumatic soil erosion from the Dust Bowl.
Yeah, that's where soil and water conservation district.
Wow, that's fabulous history. So you said something about youth classes. If that's something you particularly engage in. What are you teaching?
Oh, that's a great question. So some of it is fixed. For example, our flagship educational event for youth is called the Southern Oregon Regional Envirothon, which is a natural resources competition for high schoolers. And
really?
Yes, it is the only regional event in the state that then feeds up to the state envirothon, which then feeds up to an international envirothon. And I just have to really plug all of our wonderful teachers and students who participate in this event. So that one focuses on wildlife ecology, soil and land use, aquatic ecology, a current issue of the year, did I say aquatic ecology, and forestry or forest ecology. So that's a really great event, and we have really great partnerships around it. One of our teams has won state the last 2 years and will be going to the international competition again this year, representing Oregon, as well as Jackson County.
Wow.
So that's really cool.
That is really cool.
And then other than that, it kind of depends on, a lot of times teachers will reach out and say they have a need or will be invited to do some sort of educational event. And I would say it's in our areas of focus. It might be water quality or agricultural water quality, water conservation. It could be learning about soil health and land use, things like that, maybe forest health, wildfire, the role of fire in forest health, as well as prevention of large destructive fires. So so it's, it kind of ranges the gamut, but mostly within our areas of focus.
Wow. So I don't know where to start this youth. The youth training that you have is really robust. You've got, let's talk about the fire part, because that's, kind of in our face.
Yes.
Off and on.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah. So what are the youth classes? So are you doing youth classes about fire?
I think that it's probably better to speak about the restoration work we do. I mean,
okay,
certainly we can do education related to it with youth, but
yeah, let's talk about that.
Yeah, the focus of our work, for our forest restoration work, we're predominantly focused in the northeastern part of the county. There's this evolved out of the South Open Chain Fire in 2020. And so from there, our staff have really been focused on post-fire restoration, as well as increasing forest health for the benefits that brings, as well as resiliency to future wildfires. So that is a large focus of some of our staff's work. And of course, that is focused in one area of the county, but we all face impacts from wildfire and from wildfire smoke. And so certainly you can see how that benefit extends beyond that area.
So how are the youth involved in the restoration part of that?
Youth wouldn't be necessarily involved in that restoration. It would be something we could educate about or bring
Oh,
folks out,
gotcha.
but that wouldn't be, we work with adults predominantly for that. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what are the restoration efforts? I mean, what do those look
What does
like?
that look like? What does that
Yeah.
mean? So it really means, connecting with residents, landowners, working on their properties to do thinning or removal of hazard trees.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, definitely restoring native species. Much of the county is a fire adapted ecosystem, which means naturally and historically, indigenous peoples applied fire, fire naturally occurred. And so there was not these large, super destructive fires, but frequent low intensity fire. And that really served to burn off fuels and debris and keep those native species in place and keep the forest healthy. And in the absence of that, in the absence of more hands-on management like thinning and things like that, we've had big fuel buildup. In addition, with increased drought and warming temperatures, we've got ourselves, ripe for these big wildfires. So we're trying to work to restore some of those conditions where the forests have more space, there's less fuel buildup, they're healthier, and they're going to be more resilient to ignition.
And one of the reasons we're so excited to talk to you is because you work with what you call private owners. This is like people that own rural property out in Eagle Point, for example.
Exactly,
Yeah.
definitely. Yep, for sure. And we are also, we have a big focus on water quality out in that area as well. For residents, for folks, for example, in Eagle Point, that could be thinking about stormwater runoff. So when we have big storms and that water hits your house, where is it going? What pollutants is it picking up? And how can we better manage that to reduce our impacts in our creeks, rivers, and streams? So our stormwater management is a great thing to highlight for folks in that area.
So what does storm water management like actually entail?
Like, what does it look like?
Yeah.
Yeah. So sometimes it's about, most of it is about slowing that water. So when a big rainstorm happens, and if that just runs off your gutters into the stormwater system, it goes right out into our rivers and streams, it raises them really quickly and it runs out. And so
It raises the volume of water. Gotcha.
And as opposed to if it falls like in a forest or in a meadow, it naturally kind of percolates, it slows, it collects, it filters out pollutants, and it more gradually releases to our rivers and streams, which means that they have a more consistent supply as well as a cleaner supply. So stormwater management is about trying to collect some of that. It might be in a planter box, it might be in a rain garden, it might be moving through a swale and it filters it out and then more gradually releases later. Or also in rain storage tanks, that's also very common, is to collect it in rain storage, and then that can be used in the summer when we're not having rain for emergency storage, things like that.
Wow. So what does some of the collection containers look like? That's all very interesting that you can even do that.
Yeah, they're like, I'm sure folks have seen them, they're the large, I don't know, I want to say 8 to 12 feet. I might be getting my numbers wrong, but like diameter and, maybe 10 feet high, and you'll see them connected to downspouts or gutters. And yeah, or they can look like that, or the storage could be a rain garden, a beautiful garden that is naturally collecting and filtering that water.
So a rain garden, what is that?
A rain garden. So a rain garden is meant to, it serves the function of storing water. So for example, a bioswale, as I've learned from my colleague, Cora Musso, who does our residential water conservation and water quality focus. A bioswale is meant to collect that water and sort of move it along, filtering it as it moves along and out, whereas a rain garden collects it and holds it for longer and lets it filter down. So
wow, the science is so fun. It really is. We're talking to Hannah Satin of Jackson County Soil and Water Conservation District. She's the educational and outreach coordinator. And I don't mean to be like firing all these questions, but it is absolutely fascinating. And all of this information is what you provide to homeowners.
100% homeowners. Also, we educate folks who maybe renting as well, you know, residents. We try to serve all of our community members here in the way that makes sense, for sure.
Uh-huh. Okay. So going back to the rain garden,
Mhm.
are there specific plants, or is this more of just a geological or ground formation?
And no, I mean, yeah, you can create that elevation, and I'll just disclaimer that I'm not going to, since I'm not the person that does the implementation of those
Right,
projects, I'm not
right.
going to speak to
Yeah.
it as well as my colleague would, but I'll do my best. So yeah, you know, you definitely would need to have plants that could be tolerant of collecting a lot of water. But also we want to think about in the summer, you know, we don't get a lot of precipitation. So choosing plants that can also handle a drier summer, so that while you're creating a garden to manage stormwater, we also don't want to create a big bill for folks in the summer or a big water need. So plants that can do both. And the great thing is our native species are already adapted to that. That's our natural climate here. So picking native species that can handle that influx of precipitation and then also tolerate our hot, dry summers are great options. And of course, you know, it depends on your shade and your sun availability. So
Wow.
definitely property specific.
That's just amazing. We're going to have to take a quick break. We're talking to Hannah Satin of Jackson County Soil and Water District. She's educational outreach coordinator. Lots and lots of science. Very interesting. Do not touch that dial. We'll be right back. Well, hey, Southern Oregon, welcome back to the Real Estate Show. We're talking to Hannah Satin of Jackson County Soil and Water Conservation District. She's the educational and outreach coordinator, and she's very smart, very educational, and she's just filling us up with lots and lots of knowledge and good ideas. Thank you for coming back, Hannah.
Thank you for having me.
So during the break, we were talking a little bit about what your agency can do to help the agricultural homeowners. So let's go there next.
Yeah, definitely. So we have several programs that work on agricultural land. So you know, we work with farmers and ranchers, people with farmlands, to help work on water quality and water quantity. And a neat thing is a lot of projects that provide one set of benefits, water quality or water quantity, can do both at the same time. So in cases where it's appropriate and applicable, for example, converting flood irrigation to improve flood irrigation or to sprinkler or drip systems can improve water quality by reducing runoff temperatures, reducing runoff in general, and the pollutants that carries with it. And so working, and then also at the same time being more efficient. So using less water for the same amount of crop production, enabling you know, more crops to be produced or more water to be used for different purposes. So that's really great. We also work on improving soil health. So thinking about grazing management, pasture management, things like that. So getting out on the ground and working with people to see what their needs are, what their interests are, and where we can work together for something that serves everyone. So those are really great programs.
So what would some grazing management ideas be for homeowners?
Yeah, so you know, with grazing management, you definitely, something to think about is rotational grazing, and it does take some effort to move the animals around, but essentially you want them to equally graze and not just graze their favorite things down to nubbins and leave the things that they don't get
Because
behind.
that's what they do.
Yeah, exactly. So you move them along so that you can sort of keep that balance and then keep that healthy, diverse mix, and also encouraging you know, native species and species that are beneficial for the animals and the environment, and that they're happy to eat as well and are, you know, nutritious. And of course, you know, also thinking about mud and manure management, things like that. In the winter, having a heavy use area or a sacrifice area so that you know, your livestock and your animals can, you know, do the things they do and make it muddy and messy in a certain area, but it's away from streams. It's not impacting other parts of your property. Fencing along stream sides, things like that, to find alternate sources of water for livestock and reduce either the number of access points or how much they're accessing.
Oh, so they're not actually getting down into the creeks and streams and rivers. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, limiting it or like hardening it so it reduces the impact on the stream if they need to cross it. So we try to take best management, best science, and also work with people's needs and make something that works for everyone.
Well, I like that you're just going out and helping homeowners with good practice suggestions. It doesn't sound like they're getting tickets or getting in trouble.
We are non-regulatory, so we will let people know what the laws and rules are, but we are not enforcement in any way. We are not reporting. That's not our role. Our role is to really be that bridge and help folks do the right things for themselves and for everyone else.
We're talking to Hannah Satin of Jackson County Soil and Water Conservation District. She's the Educational and Outreach Coordinator, and we're just learning tons and tons of stuff. I've got some more questions before we go to another break. Do you want to tell people about your website real quick before we go on with the interview?
I would love to do that. Thank you so much. So our website is a really great resource. It's www.jswcd.org. So it's our acronym, Jackson Soil and Water Conservation District. And we highlight upcoming events, we highlight ways to get involved. Our resource pages are really wonderful. There's connections not only to technical and financial assistance opportunities we have, but other ones in the community that folks can access. Some great overview information if you want to learn more, or if you really want to dig in, we have links to that too. So I really want to flag our resources pages, but in general, I think it's a really great hub of information, and we try to keep it very updated and user-friendly and accessible. So
yeah, I've been on your website. I love it. It's very, very deep, very robust, and very easy to use. You don't have to be a scientist.
That's the goal. Yeah, that's definitely the goal.
So speaking of science, you happen to mention in passing, and I hope this is okay to ask, manure management. Like what is that? I've never even heard of that.
Yeah, so I mean, I think manure is a very valuable resource, but it's also a hard thing to manage. If you have a lot of animals, that's a lot of manure. And so it's thinking about where is that manure being deposited and where can you collect it and store it so that it's not having a negative impact on your land or on everyone's water resources, as well as your animals. No one wants their animals standing around in mud and manure too. So it's just thinking about the proper collection, or I shouldn't say proper, but the collection and storage of manure to reduce potential negative impacts and reap the benefits of it.
And what are some ideas in that direction? I'm sorry, I just
of
course it's a thing I didn't even think about. So, but if you have a huge herd of anything, you're going to have to deal with this.
For sure. And I'll just disclaimer again, this is not my area of expertise, and I would direct you to our agricultural resource conservationist if someone was like, tell me what to do. But one thing I do know is building facilities for storage that have concrete on them and they're sheltered, so you're not having that leaching out, you're not having your animals standing in it. You're just thinking about ways to collect it and store it to reduce those impacts.
Okay, and then they might use it for their crops.
Yeah, exactly. It could sell it. They could compost.
You can sell it.
Yeah, manure is very valuable, depending on what it is and the form it's in, for sure.
I wonder if there are tax breaks for selling your own manure.
I don't know.
Different agency.
Yeah, our staff might be able to speak to that. I'm not sure myself.
Yeah, sorry. It's my wild brain.
No, it's great.
Okay, so going back to the agricultural part, it's sounding like if you're not managing the manure and the animal access to the stream waterways, then like what if there was a big rainstorm, then all of that is going into the waterway? Is that part of what we're trying to work with here?
Definitely. So nutrients can have aquatic environment, streams, they need nutrients, of course. They need sediment. I mean, our rivers and our streams are huge movers of sediment. That's one of their core functions. But they're adapted to a certain amount of it. And so if they get a big impact that's beyond what's typical, that has significant impacts. And we certainly have streams that are having problems with nutrients, with bacteria, E. coli, phosphorus is another one. So particularly with manure, those would be things we're thinking about. And as that manure is getting washed out, it's getting washed out with sediment. So erosion prevention and management of leaching of nutrients. It could also be from fertilizers, things like that. We're trying to reduce the washing off and reducing that erosion. And again, you can go all the way back to the history of where we come from. Erosion is still a big issue that we need to be concerned about and dealing with proactively.
But some of this was, as you said, considered normal. So how do we decide if it's an excessive, like a year where there's excessive pollutants in the
I guess when
runoff?
I say normally, it's thinking sort of an ecosystem that isn't super developed, having large human impacts. I think.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
The way that we use land is more intensive. So developing large amounts of it with machines and equipment, leaving soil open and bare, large construction sites, forestry operations, if like a bunch of land is getting cleared, a clear cut, for example, things like that. That would be where those potentials for large impacts are and where we need to start thinking about how can we manage that.
Well, that makes sense.
Mhm.
So what about people? We've been talking a lot about people who live in the country. For people in town, are there any services for them?
Yeah, that's what our stormwater management, I would say, is our predominant focus for urban areas, and that's the predominant natural resource concern. Of course, water quantity is always something, water quantity issues affect all of us, but really where the largest efficiencies and savings can be found is in agricultural water use. And that's not because farmers and ranchers are doing something wrong, but it's because that is the largest amount of water that get used. So municipal use is lessened, but we can also think about water conservation in the home, outside of the home, on our landscaping and things like that. So I shouldn't say just water quality and stormwater management, but also water quantity. Of course, again, our forest health, that has benefits to urban residents as well. And certainly folks that are on that wildland urban interface where they, maybe semi-rural, semi-residential, thinking about protecting from wildfire impact.
Well, one of the fun things that I'm guessing you get to address are the relocators, what we call in real estate relocators, people that come from other areas and they've not lived in a rural district at all before. So if someone like that were to call, or maybe they've lived in town their whole life here in Southern Oregon, and you get a phone call from them, how would you help them prepare to be an owner of some rural property?
Yeah, I mean, contacting us for a site visit for someone to come out.
Oh, that's a great idea. You do that?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, folks. So our staff will come out, depending on what their land is and what the natural resources available are. The relevant staff person would come out and talk to them and walk property and see what those concerns are, how we can help connecting folks. A lot of that information is available in various forms, depending if you want to watch a video, if you want to read an article, you want to listen to a podcast. I think there is a responsibility in owning property and owning land. And, self-education is an important role. There are so many events and classes put on in this county around natural resource management. Southern Oregon Research and Extension Center, SOREC, is a wonderful, wonderful resource. They also have technical assistance. They have tons of events and classes. Their land stewards class is our staff come and present at it. That is an excellent, excellent resource for someone who is a new property owner, particularly with natural resource or land access. So so we would, we try to help connect them and to our services and also to other resources to help continue that education.
Well, and even some longtime owners, I think, could benefit because, just because your pappy taught you doesn't mean it's, the latest and greatest. So, yeah, we're talking to Hannah Satin, Jackson County Soil and Water Conservation District. She's the Education and Outreach Coordinator and very smart. Are you the person that goes out or do you have staff that does that?
Yeah, our staff do that. So I'm the person, I kind of think of myself in terms of outreach as like our cheerleader and share of opportunity.
Gotcha.
So I help share what we've got and connect folks. That's my role.
Well, we're going to have to take another break, but please stay tuned. We've got more great information from Hannah. Do not touch that dial. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Real Estate Show, folks. Alice Lema here, broker John L. Scott in beautiful Southern Oregon. We're talking to Hannah Satin today. She's the Education and Outreach Coordinator for Jackson County Soil and Water Conservation District. And wow, we have just learned so much, Hannah. Thank you for coming on.
Yes, thank you for having me.
So one of the things we wanted to make sure we talked about was streamside management. Is that what you call it?
Yeah, so the word that we say a lot is riparian, which means riparian areas are streamside areas. So they're the spaces that are essentially transitions from land environments and aquatic environments, rivers, creeks, streams.
Okay.
Yeah, so our riparian areas, we focus on restoring them. And I just want to highlight some of the benefits of riparian restoration. So there's definitely environmental benefits, and there are also human benefits. So riparian areas are really important filtration areas. You know, they receive runoff entering our rivers and creeks and streams, and they also receive the water that's flowing by it. So, you know, we talked about impacts of erosion, impacts of sediment. Healthy riparian areas collect sediment, they store it, they filter those nutrients and other pollutants. Also, you know, it has felt maybe a little bit less relevant in recent years, but they're really important for slowing floodwaters and flooding impacts. And so a healthy riparian area has typically, where we live, has a mix of tall deciduous trees and then native understory bushes. So they're diverse, they're not like overcrowded with blackberry or other invasive species. They're not having a stream that's running 6 feet below the banks. You know, they're gently graded areas. So you can imagine where that water can, as it rises, it gets kind of held and then sinks back down. And so this can be in an urban area, this can be in a rural area. If you have streamside property or creekside property, and you think, oh my gosh, it's not looking super, like it has super diverse vegetation, or oh yeah, it definitely is overrun with Himalayan blackberry. You know, reach out and see if we have an opportunity to be able to help support you in doing some restoration of those really important areas.
So the homeowner themselves, whether they be in town or out in the country, they would do, with the advice and assistance, education.
Yeah, it depends. I mean, I can't say, particularly like in cities, you know, there might be some of those areas that are owned by the city or under city management.
Right. Well, that makes sense.
Yeah, but in some cases not. And so that would depend. But yeah, definitely, you know, there are applicable laws that we need to be aware of. And so we would help support folks in following those and doing restoration to benefit themselves and benefit the environment.
So if somebody acquired a property and it had a waterway on it, which is so common in Southern Oregon, that's why we even have them in town, and they wanted to put in some kind of sitting area, clear some spots so that they could actually go down and enjoy the water, how does that work? And is that really something you want to do to the side of a stream or a river?
I mean, typically I would say, no, you wouldn't want to clear the side of the stream or river, because again, that is that important riparian area. And if it's denuded of vegetation, it's not going to serve that function.
Yeah, it can't do its job.
Right. But that said, if you have a healthy, robust riparian area and you have a small patch that is clear, 10 by 10 or something, for sitting and having a nice time, that, you know, that's a negligible impact. And again, we're trying to work with people. So it's important that we create solutions that work for the environment and for people. And so it would really be putting that in context, you know, if that, you know, sometimes folks need to farm or ranch up to the edge of the creek or stream. And so perhaps there's one area that's better for that and another that we can focus on restoration. So our goal is to work with folks and find solutions that are sustainable for them.
Because it doesn't have to be all or nothing.
It doesn't have to be all or nothing, and doing something's better than doing nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, you know, this is such a good conversation because I don't believe that people understand the job of the stream and the job of the soil around the stream and the plants, that they all have something to do. They have a job.
Mhm. They do, they certainly do, and they're helping us and they're helping the rest of the environment, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's all very interesting. So what kind of, if somebody wanted to be involved in this kind of science, like what kind of classes would they take if they wanted to be in your agency? What kind of education do people get?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, definitely focusing, I would say in natural resources, there's a lot of different ways that can look. Some folks who have worked here have, specialized in wildlife. My background is in water resources management and policy, as well as collaboration. So getting diverse folks to work together towards a common purpose.
Comes in
Um,
handy.
it certainly does. I think the people side of it is probably more difficult than the science. So just, anyway, so definitely studying natural resources. There's so much to be said for hands-on experience, internships, practical courses, getting field season jobs, things like that, like just folks getting their hands dirty, and getting experience outside. And so, there's that technical knowledge, and then there's of course just the skills of working collaboratively, like I said, with residents, with partners, things like that.
Yeah, you've got a lot of other agencies to collaborate with as well. So for going back to our youth in the couple minutes we have left, are they able to come and take some of your classes to try to move forward in this direction?
Yeah, so really a lot of the classes that we teach were invited to come in, but we do, on occasion do internships or volunteer opportunities, or help, if we don't have an internship available, help connect folks. For example, I know Medford Water Commission is, at least was, and looking for 2 interns. I believe they
Oh,
still
that's
are.
exciting.
Yeah, for sure. And so that would be an opportunity if someone, if a student hears this and they're like, oh my gosh, I want my class to learn more about it, reach out and we'll see if we can create that opportunity. Yeah, and in terms of the Southern Oregon Regional Envirothon, that is for any high schoolers in our area. You need a team advisor, which is typically a teacher. It doesn't have to be, it could be a club person or another person that's, excited about training up a team. But that's an option too.
Oh, that's so exciting. And when is that Envirothon held?
So it is always held for us in the beginning of April. It's about a month in advance of the state Envirothon, which is held in May.
Okay. And how
Yeah.
is our area doing in that?
I mean, we're doing great. I was up at the state Envirothon this May. Like I said, one of our teams took first, another took second,
Wow.
another took fourth. So
Wow.
we cleaned up there. I was so proud.
That is so exciting. Well, we only have a minute left, Hannah. How about you give us your website again? And
Yeah.
are there any phone numbers that we can pass out?
Sure. So our website is www.jswcd.org. You can also find us on Instagram and Facebook. It's
Oh,
Jackson,
nice.
yeah, Jackson Soil and Water Conservation District. And then our main office line is on our website. I can share it too. It's 541-423-6159.
Oh, that's awesome. Hannah Satein, Jackson County Soil and Water Conservation District, Education and Outreach Coordinator. What a great episode of the Real Estate Show. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
This broadcast is going to be repeated again tomorrow, Sunday at 6 p.m. on KCMX 99.5. Special thanks to John L. Scott, Ashland and Medford, Guy Giles, Mutual Mortgage, and the local Rogue Valley Association of Realtors. We appreciate your sponsorship. Have a beautiful Southern Oregon weekend, folks. Hug those you love. Bye now.